There was once a Kashmir where girls wore skirts to school, where basketballs bounced in government school courts, where Hindu temples stood alongside Sufi shrines, and where religion was never louder than music, food, and poetry. That Kashmir is now mostly a memory, and the people who lived that life, some haven't seen their homes in over 34 years. In this video, I'll walk you through the story of the Kashmiri Pandits, not just how they were driven out, but how an entire culture was dismantled in silence. Kashmir was always different. It was Muslim, yes, but not the kind the world later came to fear. Kashmiri Islam was shaped by Sufism, mystical, syncretic, and deeply local. It grew not in conquest, but in reflection, in poetry, and in the soft call of saints. Kashmir had also long been the land of rishis and sages. Kashmiri Shaivism, mingled with Islamic mysticism, created a spiritual current that defied borders. Temples and mosques stood side by side. Muslim families lit diyas during Diwali. Shrines welcomed both faiths. Azan followed temple bells, not in conflict but in chorus. Hindu and Muslim girls wore jeans, played volleyball, and recited English poetry. Music and intellect were part of everyday life. The Kashmiri Pandits? They were the backbone of education, governance, and culture. A tiny community, just 3 to 5% of the valley's population, but central to its memory. They were Sanskrit scholars, teachers, civil servants, and philosophers. They lived with dignity. They imposed nothing. But change was coming. And it didn't arrive with a bang, but with a whisper. Foreign sermons, radical cassette tapes, ideas not rooted in the valley's soil began to spread. The whisper grew into slogans, slogans into threats. Neighbors looked at neighbors with suspicion, and a centuries-old coexistence began to show cracks. In the late 1980s, something shifted. Across the Muslim world, Saudi Arabia exported Wahhabism, an ultra-conservative, rigid ideology that branded Kashmiri Sufism as heresy. Shrines were attacked, poetry disappeared, folk songs were silenced, and Arabic replaced Kashmiri. Clerics warned women against wearing jeans and makeup. Cassettes called for purity. What followed wasn't just extremism, it was Arabization. And then came the politics. Pakistan-backed groups like Hizbul Mujahideen and JKLF found recruits. Guns entered the valley, and so did jihadist slogans. The Pandits, once neighbors, became the other. By late 1989, the violence was no longer subtle. Targeted killings began. Tika Lal Taplu, BJP leader, murdered in September 1989. Neelkant Kanju, a retired judge, assassinated in November. Mosques blasted chilling slogans: convert, die, or leave. Posters declared, "Leave now, this is not your land." Gunmen marked Pandit homes. On the night of January 19, 1990, the valley erupted. Blackouts, loudspeakers, gunshots, slogans of war. Women were threatened. Men were hunted. More than 100,000 Kashmiri Hindus fled in terror that night and in the days that followed. They left behind homes, temples, memories, and graves. Around 219 Pandits were killed in targeted attacks in the early 1990s. Some sources say the real toll is higher. And the government? It was silent. The media? Mute. The army? Absent. This wasn't just migration, it was ethnic cleansing, and the world looked away. And then began exile. Refugee camps in Jammu, Delhi, and elsewhere. Tarp tents, open sewers, broken dreams. Educated families reduced to beggars in their own country. Teachers became jobless. Young girls who once read Shakespeare and Kalhana now stood in ration lines. In the heat of Delhi slums, a 5,000-year-old culture shriveled. Kashmir moved on. Stones replaced school books, guns replaced poetry. Even moderate Muslims fell silent, afraid to speak up. The Pandits were gone, and then they were forgotten. This isn't just about politics. It's about a cultural genocide, about a language, Kashmiri, losing its custodians, about temples overrun by moss, desecrated or destroyed, about children today who don't know that their grandparents once read Kalhana and Iqbal in the same breath. It's about the lie that the Pandits just left, as if anyone willingly walks away from their gods, their graves, or their memories. It's about the selective silence of Indian intellectuals who advocate for every displaced group, except this one. And it's about the pain of not being hated, but being erased. Today, there's talk of return, of reconciliation. But return to what? The homes are gone. The neighbors are changed. The silence still hangs heavy. How do you rebuild where history was deleted? How do you forgive what was never even acknowledged? If liberalism, secularism, and humanity mean anything, they must start here, with truth, with courage, and with remembering. Because the Kashmiri Pandits weren't defeated by bullets, they were erased by silence.